Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kai Russell, and I am absolutely honoured to be here. Before I begin my talk, I guess you will, I would just like to thank every single one of you who has tuned in for taking the time to listen to me. I would especially like to thank Mr. Adam Collins, who was very gracious enough to send me an invite to the convention. I have meant to appear at previous conventions, however, personal commitments unfortunately got in the way. Now, however, I am fully available and fully ready to give you my time, as valuable or as unvaluable as you might deem it. So regardless of what you think of whatever I say, I am very, very thankful that you took the time to visit. And I really hope that, regardless of how you find us, that you have a great day. And that's about it. So, my name is Kai Russell. I am an English person. Very weird way to start off, but there we go. I'm an English person who lives in Wales. For those in America who might not be aware of what Wales is, it's the very small sort of scratch of land on the United Kingdom that the rest of the United Kingdom pretend doesn't exist. And that's where I live. And as an atheist and an anti-theist in Wales, and especially in the United Kingdom, it would probably be fair to say that I possibly don't have as big of an experience of religious oppression against me because of my lack of religious beliefs. I might not have ever been targeted by hate groups or the Westboro Baptist Church. The most I've had recently, if I'm honest, is a couple of very ignorant hate comments from the likes of people who would support Mr. Donald Trump, which kind of tells you all you need to know. However, as a child, I was actually quite the devout Christian. Nobody else in my family was, but I took it upon myself that I wanted to be saved, if you will. And the reason, principally, that I wanted to follow a religion, in my case Roman Catholicism, was quite simple. I was very scared as a child, and I was afraid of a lot of things. And when I was younger, the idea of something so fantastical being on my side, fighting for my team, was too much to resist. It was just, the allure was irresistible, and not having anyone in my family who really cared one way or the other for science and reason and logic, or for religion and fairy tale and superstition, they never really sat me down and really dealt with the underlying fears. So at the age of 11, I not only decided that I wanted to go to a Catholic high school to really pursue religion on a much bigger scale, I decided I wanted to go the whole hog and be christened as well. So I was christened. My christened name is Francis. That is the name that was given to me. That's the name that I chose. Principally, I think, because there was a character on Malcolm in the Middle who I think was called Francis, and I thought he was cute. You can kind of see where things started to fall apart a little bit. But I digress. I went through school very religious. In the UK, we have high school, then we have college, then we have university. I'm not entirely sure how it works in America, so you'll have to forgive me. But to put it into even terms, I was about 15 when a couple of things became abundantly clear to me. And one of them was that I wasn't very happy. And I didn't really have any reason that I saw to live, or to live at the best of my ability. And I was understandably upset. And I was angry. And I wondered why I was created with this character flaw. This character flaw that now, as a 25-year-old man, I know is depression. And I deal with that in my own way. And I've dealt with it myself, not with religion. But at the age of 14, 15, I didn't have the answers. And the teachers didn't have the answers. But when I started to realize that I might like both men and women, then my teachers had an answer, and that answer was surprisingly simple. It was, don't act upon it, pray, and remember that they are filthy and live in sin. And I could never understand this, because the idea of a God that I had, and I know that everyone who does believe in God has a very different idea, usually very catered to them, of what God is. But my idea of a God was a very forgiving, very loving, very understanding deity. And the moment I realized that I might be incorrect about that was when I actually decided not to just skim through the Bible, which I would do just for the answers that the teachers wanted, but to actually really sit down and read it cover to cover. And I read through it twice in succession, cover to cover. Whilst I was reading it, I touched no other novel. I didn't really pay attention to everything else. I really wanted to sort of absorb everything and get everything in my head. And once I did, it became very abundantly clear that my idea of God and my idea of a deity was definitely not the deity or the almighty that was portrayed in the book, or any of the books. I began to realize that my character traits, negative or positive, actually rounded off quite nicely compared to the deity. He is jealous. I would argue most humans are jealous at some point. We have jealous tendencies, but that's kind of unavoidable. It's a thought process. It's not something that, it's something that can happen accidentally. You can just find yourself being jealous. But God is constantly jealous. And God constantly reminds us that to stray from his path and his word, regardless of free will and the concept of free will, to stray from his word is tantamount to treason. It is disobeying your creator. It's essentially saying no to your mummy. And God doesn't like this. But God, rather than, take away this concept of free will, which he clearly despises so much, instead gives us another option. And that option is to either nod our heads and listen to everything he apparently said, although as we now know that's not true, and we might get into heaven along with murderers, rapists, criminals who repent on their deathbeds, which is interesting. But if you don't repent, and more specifically in my case, if I didn't stop trying to sleep with men and women, but in this case men, that instead of an afterlife, which I could spend with my family and loved ones, I would be eternally tortured and eternally mutilated for the amusement of a creation of the creator in Satan. And I find that concept extremely disturbing. It reads something. It reads more like a Grimm's fairy tale than it does a guide to living and a guide to, goodness. And it's not a guide to goodness, and it's not a guide to how to live your life, because it takes the concept of free will and just throws it away. And if you disobey free will... No, apologies. If you use the concept of free will, which, if God created everything, he also created, then you're going against the ideals of your creator, who would prefer that you stay a sheep and mindlessly follow other people. And depending on who you speak to, that following could take up a number of things. It could be, kneeling at church every Sunday and, swinging the smoky bit of metal, I don't know what it's called, and, you know, occasionally taking a priest's nutsack about that far back in your throat. Or it could be cutting the genitalia off of a newborn child that has not only no say in the matter, but no choice over its own destination in life, guaranteed that that child, with the help of those around it, will also become a member of the same faith. And if it's not any of those, it is killing people who don't agree with the same religion as yours, and blowing up innocent people, and flying planes into buildings. And I've spoken to many religious people who would always make the argument, well, atheists can be criminals too. That's true. That's very true. I'll say right now, the only thing that I can guarantee I have in common with everyone watching is that we don't believe in God. That's it. But I like the fact that that's all that connects us, because our differences are so much more interesting. I truly feel honoured to be part of a group of people whose political beliefs, whose ideas about science, whose ideas about the world and the way that things work, their musical taste, what they like to read, everything is so different and so varied, and is therefore so much more interesting. I find that much more pleasing than being in a room full of people who all think the same thing. And in a room full of people that believe that they can pretty much have a license to do whatever they want. And I know not all of them do, but some do. And they believe that they can do whatever they want because, well, whatever they do, they're doing it in service to a higher power. It's the ultimate get out of jail free card. It's the ultimate cheat. And I find myself, as an older person, especially as someone who fell out of the church and became a lapsed Catholic in the process, and in their eyes, I've never really left. I'm on a nice long vacation. In my view, religion has not only become just one of the most ridiculous concepts that still prevails in the 21st century. It has gone from flat out murderous to state condoned murder. And on both sides of the political spectrum, you will either, depending on the religion, funnily enough, you will always see one side defend faith above the lives of innocent people when people die in terrorist atrocities. Every single time, without fail. I'm a liberal, but I will flat out say this, because very few other liberals will. When it comes to Islam, liberals will fall upon the sword 9 times out of 10 to deflect any blame from the religion, because they're concerned about offense, or they're concerned at someone taking it the wrong way. When it comes to Republicans in America, it's pretty much any time a Catholic opens his goddamn mouth and says something ridiculous, or wants to keep his guns after a school shooting when there's 20 kids lying face down in their own blood. It's not something that I take lightly. And, anyone who knows me, I love to joke about religion. It is my favourite subject to poke fun at, because the subscribers to that doctrine are so thin-skinned and are so weak, the majority of them anyway, that they will crumble the second you question anything regarding their belief. Now, as a believer in science, my belief is this, and it's very simple. I believe in what we can prove. I believe in what there's evidence for. There has never been a single real piece of evidence to support any religious text, and the argument that the books are the proof is ridiculous, and quite frankly flies in the face of intellectual thought. But the question I ask myself, and I apologise if I'm rambling, I am very nervous, have you noticed? The question I ask myself is, what is what should our purpose be as atheists? What should our purpose be as atheists in the modern world, in the 21st century? And many religious people seem to think that we are some sort of militia, we're a group, we're just plotting to sort of come underneath religion and take it out from within. And I think that idea is ridiculous. I think the idea of using their tactics against them, I don't think it works in the long run. And I think the most we can do as atheists and as secular people is to really foster discussion. Discussion seems to have died in the last couple of years, and it seems to have been replaced with one group of people screaming very, very loudly at another group of people, and whoever shouts the loudest and gets the attention of the most cameras seems to win the argument. And I'm not saying that atheists are responsible for this. I do think that some atheists do fall into that trap and end up just shouting rather than arguing a constructive point. And I've met many extremely intelligent atheists on Facebook. Michael Haag is right up there. You might know him as Christ Crusher. Is absolutely, for my money, one of the cleverest, most eloquent people on the internet with regards to atheist thought and discussion. And he lays his points out very well, better than I ever could. Adam Collins, again, is another one. He is very humorous in how he does it, but he actually discusses topics without resorting to just shouting and screaming the loudest. And he has a discussion. And discussion is extremely important, especially in this day and age. In the age of the internet, where you are either being bombarded by one section of complete lies with no evidence, or another group of complete lies with no evidence, and the actual voice of the truth is very, very quiet, because when it comes to religious people, they know how to shout loudly. They know how to act like they're very, they're beaten down and they've never really had their rights and no one really listens to them. And as we all know, the truth is very much the opposite of that. They've had their way for thousands of years, and it's got us nowhere. And in fact, it in my opinion, as someone who believes in the power of science and believes in our ability to really go beyond this planet, and especially now as an anti-theist, they have had their time. And I'm not arguing to take away their beliefs. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing more important to me than my belief in scientific thought is my belief in free speech. And if they wish to believe their fairy tales, please go ahead. I absolutely allow you to do that. I would never want to take away your freedom of speech, just as I don't want them to take away mine. They have the right to believe in their gods and their fairy tales, and I have the right, and so do you, to sit there and talk about how ridiculous it is. But we can also back up what we say with evidence. We have mounds and just buildings full of evidence now. Museums, documents, just proof. We have what they don't, and we can use it now in a constructive way, rather than just arguing endlessly. Don't get me wrong, we are never going to change everyone's minds. We certainly will not change this generation's minds with discussion. I truly believe in the religious mind. Once they get to a certain age, there is no discussion. There is no changing things whatsoever. Religion is a virus, and once it's past that point and it takes hold, you will not get rid of it. And I've never seen a case where it has. So, I do hope I'm wrong on that. I hope that someone, some 80-year-old devout Catholic suddenly thought, fuck, oh my God, that was ridiculous. Why did I ever believe that? And, lives the rest of his or her life in peace and tranquility and belief in something real. Now, I have really rambled, guys, so I do apologise. I've written all this down, and still, it's It is extremely humbling, and it also makes me very nervous to be doing this. So I'll sum up, because the timer is starting to run out. So I will sum up. I believe that regardless of whether you are an anti-theist or you are just an atheist whose only connection to me is that you don't believe in a God at all, I do believe that it is our responsibility to really do what we can to spread the real message with actual proof and evidence behind it. And we can do it without having to blow up buildings. We can do it without having to get to babies before they even have a chance to formulate a thought. We can do it without pretending that our blood is wine and our flesh is bread, and making people eat it in some sort of strangely fetishistic, cannibalistic ritual that, even as a Catholic, trust me, I still can't wrap my head around it. We can do it through intelligence and through really reaching people on a one-to-one level. And you'll never change everyone's mind, and you will never get rid of religion completely. I don't think. I do believe that there are always going to be people who need desperately to cling to an escape from death, which is why I was religious. I believed in God when I did, purely because I wanted an escape from the end. And now that I know that there is an end, and there is no afterlife, apart from my atoms, going back to the earth, I no longer feel scared by that. Especially after reading the Bible, my interest in actually going to an afterlife where there is a God such as the one in the Old Testament or the Quran or the Torah is very, very small now. I don't think me and him would get on. I think I would last quite a tiny bit of time before he went, well, down to hell with you. And I believe, and I will say truly, that even as someone with depression and as someone who has had, a lot of heartache and abuse and things like that, the lack of a belief in a God and belief in myself and belief in the power that humans hold got me through a lot more and helped me through a lot more than closing my eyes, crossing my fingers, clicking my little red boots together and just saying, I really hope God's real, I really hope God's real, I really hope God's real. Because you can ask that all you like, but it's not going to make a difference. We can elicit change, guys. We really can. And, some will do it through comedy. I might be a funny person in person. I'm not when it comes to a recording, so if you were expecting laugh-a-minute sort of commentary, I do apologize, guys. But no pun intended, I have faith in you. I have the utmost faith that we can change the hearts and minds of people. And we can do it without resorting to their tactics. And while religion will never truly die, and the cult mentality will never truly die, we have a unique opportunity through the next generation to be able to usher in a more scientific, a more peaceful, a more tolerant age. And I think after several thousand years of rape, murder, slavery, and lying to people, I think we deserve a chance at something better. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you've enjoyed my talk. Apologies for the accent. Like I said, I live in the UK and there's no wonderful American accent to keep you going. But regardless, I really hope you've enjoyed, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be here. I would love to do it again. So have a wonderful night, guys. Enjoy the rest of it, and I'll catch you soon.